So when I was, I think, 10 years old, I was at Merrily Primary, and I've got Mrs. Thompson of Merrily Primary to thank a lot for introducing me to the sport. I'd done a fun run, I think, in school at Merrily, and Mrs. Thompson, of course, wife of Croy, who's been a huge support of mine over the years and a great servant to the club and given up so much of his time. Mrs. T said I should go along to Giffnock North and see how I found it, so at the time I found it really exciting. I was kind of one of these people that was playing all sorts of sports growing up, and never quite was maybe talented enough to be scouted for football, that kind of thing. So I thought, oh, this is me being scouted, great. That's kind of the way I thought of it, and went along to Giffnock North and was helped out by Claire initially. Claire Stevenson was my first coach, and still remember quite well on the Ash pitch not far from here, where we did our first session with Claire, and she was teaching us the importance of using your arms. I just loved it kind of from that point on. I really enjoyed the environment there, and yeah, just felt like it was something I could really enjoy and get behind as a sport. My favourite event would probably be the 800 metres at first, I think. I remember doing a time trial when I was still really young, about 10, 11 years old, with Claire. I think I ran 3 minutes 8 seconds for 800 metres. I think that was the first race I'd ever done, or the first time trial I'd ever done, and I got beat by a lot of people. But I really enjoyed it. I thought, yeah, I thought, oh, I can get good at this, and it was strange because I did get beat so many people at the time. In fact, I even remember Nicky Manson was way out ahead of me, and but still really enjoyed it. I got a wee taste for it, and I kept getting better at it, and I think that was what really drew me to the sport, was the work I was putting in. Every time I went to compete, every time I went to test myself, I've seen improvement, and it was all dependent on the work I was putting in. So that's what kind of kept me in the sport and kind of drew me to just wanting to get better in athletics. So yeah, that was my early experience, and that was my my favourite event, the 800. My first medal was the Renfrewshire Road Race Championships, which is in Battery Park in Greenock. I actually still have really vivid memories of it. It was my first ever race for the club, although I hadn't even bought a club vest yet. It was that soon into my career, and my goodness, me, my mum and my dad were running really late to get to Battery Park. I remember it so well. It's just a big panic to try and get to the start line, and my mum shouting, does anyone have any pins to put my wee bib on? So I remember that really well, and Claire was able to come to the rescue and get pins on me, and yeah, just pretty much showed up to the start line, not very organised clearly, and just was really naive about it, but ended up winning the race. And yeah, that I suppose was my first taste of success in the sport, and it was kind of crazy at that point, but I loved it and loved the reward I got from all the hard work I was putting in. So yeah, first gold medal was the Renfrewshire Road Race Champs. I mean, it's really just a case of not forgetting where you came from. My mum's always liked this expression, which is never forget who brought you to the dance, which is just like, never remember who was behind the scenes when things were just getting started, when things, when I was young and getting my start in the sport. I would never be where I am today without the support of the likes of Claire at first, just nurturing that enjoyment for the sport. I've been so lucky to have so many good sort of mentors along the way, with my support with Gordon Lockie at Giffnock North as well. And without the experiences I had in this sport at this club, there's absolutely no way I would have got to the position I am today. So it means a lot to me, one, to give back to, I feel like I owe the club so much in general, and two, I see the younger athletes coming up in my position where I once were, running faster than I ever was when I was younger, and I just feel like it's so tangible to have an athlete sort of performing at higher levels, like myself and a few others in the club, to have that I didn't even have that so much as a youngster in the group, so I think to have that as a tangible, you know, see it to believe it type thing, I think it's important for kids to see that I was exactly where you guys were, and there's no reason why, if you stick at it and do all the right things in training and you listen to your coaches, you can't get to the higher levels of this sport. I mean, in terms of just training itself, when I'm home, really like Whiteley Wind Farm. I've been going up there for long runs. That's a terrific place to get some sort of long runs done when it's not sideways rain and wind, which can be kind of half the time. But on a nice day there's just about nowhere better locally, I think. But in terms of competing, there's kind of a couple of favourites really. Virginia Tech was where I went to university over in the US, so their indoor track, Rector Fieldhouse, is the first place I ever went sub 4 in the mile, and I just have a lot of, you know, really fond memories of that place. So that indoor track in Blacksburg, Virginia is probably my favourite of all time. Although I'd have to say that with the World Indoors coming up next year, I'm looking to change that. I'm looking for the Emirates to be my favourite track, because I think just that with the family and the friends and everything that can be there for that championship, that's going to be special. So I'm looking to create some fond memories from competing in Glasgow next year in March. If I'm completely honest, when I crossed the line and I'd just finished the race, there were kind of bittersweet emotions about it. You need to put yourself in this frame of mind at that level of competition, that, you know, winning's kind of the only option kind of thing. If you really want to win, that's kind of the headspace you've got to get yourself into. And immediately as I came off the track, I felt a little disappointed that I wasn't able to win. I just felt like I had every chance to, and I really believed I could. But the event was such a high level that I can't sit now and tell you that I'm disappointed. I'm not. The more time I've had to reflect, the more happy I am with the accomplishment. I mean, it was my first major championship medal, so for a start I really need to take stock in how massive progress that is, because I hadn't done that before. And also just the level of performance that I was able to sort of accomplish this season, and particularly European indoors, is just above anything I've done before. So I've got to be delighted with the progress in this indoor season. There's a couple that kind of stand out. I think the first big one is going back a little ways now. The first one that changed me a little bit as an athlete was the time under 17s I won the National Cross Country Championships in Callender Park. That one was a bit of a game changer for me, because I'd sat down with Gordon at the beginning of the season, and I really wasn't one of the top guys in Scotland for cross country. It was one of these things where, you know, we looked at February as a chance of winning a national championship over the cross country, but at the time, maybe to most it wouldn't have seemed that realistic. We sat down and planned how we were going to do it, and really upped our training than anything we'd ever done before, and worked harder and just did a lot more in terms of volume than we'd done before, and eventually beat some people that I never thought I'd really be able to beat that day in Callender Park, and it validated all the work I'd put in leading to that race in Falkirk. So that took my kind of appreciation for the sport up a lot, because I realised that I really could get to a high level if I was, you know, willing to keep putting in more work, keep doing the right things. And the very fact that we planned on winning this race and ended up winning it against the odds, I guess you could say, was just special. And it's something that I look back on as sort of changing me a little bit as an athlete, because it ignited a bit of a fire in me that I realised that I could get places that I didn't really realise I could before. Another big one was the DMR, the distance medley relay that's run in the national championships out in the US, the collegiate system. We won my very last race, beg your pardon, for Virginia Tech. We won the DMR relay, and I hadn't to that point won a national title, so that was big, and to do it with my teammates who had been with there for 4 or 5 years was just immense. It's just one of my favourite memories in this sport, because it's rare that you get to celebrate with other people. It's often so individual. And I suppose since then, that this silver medal that I just won in Istanbul has got to be a highlight as well. So yeah, those are a few of the most memorable moments without a doubt. In this sport, I've always kind of said that I want to be competitive at the world level, and you know, this indoor season I really started to prove that I'm there or thereabouts. I want to get this year on the podium at the World Championships this year. That's got to be the next goal. And if I'm honest, this year is a bit of a stepping stone to what's probably going to be the most important, not to put too much pressure on myself, year of my career next year, with there being the World Indoors in Glasgow, and then the biggest event that will come up is the Olympics in Paris. Everything's kind of geared towards that, and so yeah, I'd love to just put everything on the line and do as well as possible for me, my supporters, my family at the Olympic Games next year. I haven't been an Olympian yet, so that's an intermediate goal. I need to qualify for the Olympics, and if I do that, yeah, then I'll be looking to win a medal there, and there's nobody going into that I don't feel like I'll be able to beat. An immense challenge, I know, but I have to think like that if I have to stand any chance of accomplishing those goals. My advice, although it's tricky and I wouldn't have listened to when I was younger, is just to be patient in your training. I know it seems crazy from one week to the next to not think about right now, because that's the way I was as an athlete. Is like, you know, how can I be as good as I can in this session tonight? And that was all that was going on ever in my mind. Whereas you kind of have to, you know, if I was telling my younger self, zoom out a little bit and see how many good training weeks we can stack together, how many great sessions we can have, rather than, you know, having a great session one night and then maybe struggling the next if you haven't recovered well enough. It's about accumulating training over a long period of time and just being patient with it. On the other side, enjoying it, because you're not going to get all the way through the age groups and then beyond if you don't enjoy what you're doing. So you need to find the event that's right for you, and you need to slowly plug away at it. The improvements just aren't going to come overnight. It's not like that in this sport, and there's not a whole lot of luck involved that can be the case in other sports. So if you're patient and diligent, your progress will come. There's just kind of no doubt about that in this sport. That's the beauty of it. So, you know, two parts to it: enjoying it, and two, diligently, patiently working away over a number of years. It's harder than it sounds, and I was never good at it particularly. I was impatient and always wanted to push things hard as I could in sessions, and maybe that wasn't always the best thing, but I slowly over the years have built up a lot of training under my belt, and it's the reason I'm successful today. It's just an accumulation of work over decades.